Hello, everybody. Welcome to this wonderful platform of Foundation Agri classes, where learning meets success. In this deep dive, we are going to understand an important agriculture topic, paddy cultivation, in a simple, clear, and concept-based manner.
Today, we are absolutely cracking the code on rice. This is all about understanding, really, the single most important grain on the planet.
And that is, scientifically speaking.
Or Rhiza sativa. And before we get into, all the complexity of how you manage it and grow it, we should probably ground ourselves in the basics, the biological facts.
I think that's a perfect place to start. So what are those fundamental identifiers?
Well, first off, rice is a grass. It belongs to the Gramineae family.
Right.
Its origin, we trace that back to Southeast Asia, specifically that Indo-Burma region. And genetically, it's a diploid crop.
What does that mean, diploid?
It just means it has two sets of chromosomes. For rice, the number is 2n equals 24. And these simple facts, they really are the anchor for this massive global industry.
And when we talk about scale, especially here in India, the numbers are they're staggering. We know paddy is the dominant crop in terms of area, right?
Oh, absolutely. The area in India is around 42 million hectares. That's the maximum for any single crop.
Wow.
But the reason we need to study it so intensely goes way beyond our own fields. I mean, rice is the staple food for more than 60% of the world's population.
60%.
And if you zoom in on Southeast Asia, that number jumps. It's something like 90% of the world's rice is produced and consumed right there.
So it's a local food on a global scale.
Exactly. And here at home, in India, it's number one. The undisputed first position among all cereals for both area and total production. It's the bedrock of our food security.
Now, for you listening, especially if you're preparing for exams, knowing the research institutes behind all this is critical. Where are the main hubs for rice research?
There are three key names you absolutely have to remember. Nationally, it's the Central Rice Research Institute, or CRRI.
And it's in Cuttack, right, in Orissa.
That's the one.
Yeah.
Vital for our domestic breeding programs. Then internationally, the powerhouse is the International Rice Research Institute, IRRI.
In the Philippines.
In Los Banos, Philippines, yes.
Yeah.
They really spearheaded the Green Revolution in rice. And we should also mention the regional centers, like the Madhya Pradesh Rice Research Institute in Barwani, which tackles more local challenges.
So those are the brains behind the operation. Let's talk about the output. How does India actually stack up against the rest of the world in area, production, and, I guess most importantly, efficiency?
It's a really interesting split. If you're just looking at area, how much land is dedicated to rice, India is number one, China is second.
Okay, so we have the most land under paddy.
We do. But when you look at actual production, the total tonnage harvested China takes the lead. They're first, and we're a close second.
So China's getting more rice from less land than we are.
Precisely. And that's where the third metric, productivity, becomes so insightful. It's the yield per hectare. It's all about efficiency.
And who's number one there? I'm almost afraid to ask.
It's the USA, surprisingly.
The USA?
Yes. They don't have the massive area, of course, but their intensive farming practices mean they get the most yield out of every hectare. It's a masterclass in efficiency.
That is a lesson in itself, that difference between quantity and efficiency. So let's bring it back home. Within India, which states are the leaders?
Domestically, West Bengal is the champion. It holds the top rank for both area and total production.
So it's the dominant producer.
It is, followed by Uttar Pradesh and Andhra Pradesh in production. But just like we saw on the world stage, the story changes when you look at productivity.
Let me guess. Punjab.
You got it. The state with the highest yield per hectare in India is Punjab. And that's pretty remarkable for a region historically famous for wheat. It just shows how successful their intensive farming and irrigation systems have become.
Okay, let's unpack this and move beyond the stats and into the grain itself. We're now moving into section 1, deepening nutritional facts and the true cost of water. So what's inside the rice grain that makes it so important?
Well, the profile of rice, especially polished white rice, is all about quick energy. The protein content is actually pretty low compared to other cereals.
How low?
Around 6 to 7% in white rice. Brown rice is a bit better, maybe 7.8%. But the main thing is carbohydrates. It's packed with them, around 70%.
And fat?
Very low, only about 2 to 2.5%.
So it's a carb powerhouse, but the protein is low.
Yeah.
Is the quality of that protein any good?
It is, relatively speaking. That's the interesting part. While the quantity is low, the quality is decent because it's rich in an essential amino acid called lysine.
Okay.
Lysine makes up about 4% of the protein, and that's important because it's often the limiting amino acid in other cereals. The main protein itself is called oryzinin.
Let's talk about the plant structure, especially the genetics that change modern farming. We always hear about a specific dwarfing gene,
Yes, the name is BHU gen.
BHU gene.
Its introduction was, and this is no exaggeration, the key to the Green Revolution. You see, traditional rice was tall. If you gave it a lot of fertilizer, it would just grow taller and fall over.
A condition called lodging, right?
Exactly, a total yield loss. This gene created shorter, sturdier plants that could handle high inputs without falling over. That genetic shift is what allows for a good harvest index, around 40%.
So it's not just a name, it's the reason we can use modern farming methods. What about some of the physical specs?
Sure. The standard test weight, which is the weight of 1,000 seeds, is 25 grams.
Okay.
Interestingly, for basmati rice, it's a little lighter, just 21 grams. The stem is called a haulm or a culm, and like any grass, it's got nodes and internodes.
Then the part with the grains.
That's the inflorescence, which is a panicle, basically a cluster of spikelets. The flower is unique too. It has 6 stamens, and the fruit, the thing we harvest, is caryopsis, which is wrapped up tight in the hull.
And germination type.
It's hypogeal, meaning the cotyledons stay below the ground when it sprouts.
Now we come to what feels like the central challenge of rice: water. The numbers I've seen are astronomical. Can you put this into perspective for us?
I can, and this is the number that should stick with everyone. Your average cereal, like wheat or corn, needs about 400 to 500 liters of water to make 1 kilogram of dry matter.
Okay, that sounds like a lot already.
Rice consumes nearly 10 times more.
10 times.
It takes approximately 5,000 liters of water to produce just 1 kilogram of rice grain.
5,000 liters. For a single kilogram of food, that's just immense.
It is. It translates to a total water requirement of about 1,500 millimeters or 150 centimeters over the whole season. This is why water management is everything in rice cultivation.
Before we get into that, let's clarify a term: the hull. What exactly is it, and what percentage of the paddy is actually grain?
The hull is just the rice husk. Botanically, it's made of 2 parts, the lemma and the palea, which fuse together. When you process it, you're left with the grain, and the hulling percentage is consistently 66%.
So 2/3.
Exactly, 2/3. The formula is just the weight of the rice grain divided by the weight of the paddy grain, times 100.
Got it. Okay, let's transition into section 2. This is about the diversity within the plant's family and the critical climate it needs. So how many species are in the Oryza genus?
It's a pretty diverse genus, actually. There are 24 recognized species, but only 2 of them are cultivated.
And the main one is?
Oryza sativa, Asian rice. That's the diploid one we've been talking about, grown almost everywhere. The other one is Oryza glaberrima, which is grown pretty much only in West Africa.
And within Oryza sativa, we break it down even further into these geographic races. This seems vital for understanding breeding. Can you detail the 3 main ones?
Absolutely. The 3 races are defined by how they respond to their environment and to farming inputs.
Let's start with the one most relevant for us in India.
That would be indica. It's grown in the tropics and subtropics. The key thing about indica is that it's generally irresponsive to high inputs.
Meaning more fertilizer doesn't mean much more yield?
Correct. And critically, indica varieties are largely photosensitive. Their flowering is rigidly controlled by day length. They need short days to start flowering.
Okay. And the second race? The one we associate with high-tech farming.
That's japonica, grown in temperate regions like Japan and the USA, which helps explain their high productivity. Japonica is the opposite of indica. It's highly responsive to intensive inputs.
So it loves fertilizer.
It does. It has the highest productivity, the grains are more oval or round, and it's photoinsensitive. The timing isn't tied to day length, which gives farmers a lot more flexibility.
That input response is a huge difference. What about the third one, javanica?
Javanica, or blue rice, is mostly grown in Indonesia. It's considered a bit closer to a wild form of rice. It's also photoinsensitive. If you rank them by yield potential, it goes japonicum, then javanica, then indica.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, beyond these races, we have some really specialized types like black rice, super rice, and golden rice.
Black rice, or purple rice, is a subspecies of Oryza sativa that's become really popular. It's a nutritional powerhouse rich in iron, vitamin E, antioxidants.
And the color.
The deep purple color comes from having the highest concentration of anthocyanins of any rice. You find it in Manipur and along the border with Myanmar.
And what about super rice?
Super rice was a concept developed by the great breeder Dr. G.S. Coos, who won the World Food Prize for his work. The variety Luni Shri is the one known as super rice.
And finally, the famous and sometimes controversial golden rice.
Golden rice is a landmark in genetic modification pioneered by Ingo Petrakis. It was designed specifically to combat malnutrition. It's genetically engineered to be a good source of beta-carotene, which our bodies turn into vitamin A.
And iron, too, I believe.
Yes, and ferritin for increased iron content.
Okay, let's shift to the environment. Given that colossal water requirement, what specific climate and soil does rice demand?
Physiologically, it's a C3 short-day plant. It absolutely thrives in a hot and humid climate. Temperature is key. For general growth, it needs between 21 and 37 degrees Celsius.
But it's more sensitive at certain stages.
Very. For flowering, it needs a tighter range, 26.5 to 29.5. And for maturing the grain, it actually prefers cooler temperatures, around 20 to 25 degrees.
And the soil to hold all that water.
Heavy soils are best, clay and clay loam. They're great at retaining water. And rice is quite tolerant of acidic soils, with a pH of 4 to 6 being good. This all leads to its semi-aquatic nature. It just grows best when it's submerged.
Which brings up a logical question. If the roots are underwater, how on earth do they get oxygen to breathe?
This is the plant's evolutionary genius. It has a special tissue called erenchyma.
Erenchyma.
Yes, it's basically a network of air channels, like a built-in snorkel. It transports oxygen from the leaves all the way down to the submerged roots, allowing them to respire in that anaerobic, waterlogged environment. That's the adaptation that makes this whole system possible.
That makes perfect sense. Okay, moving into section 3. Let's explore the growing seasons and all the different ways to plant this crop, starting with the 3 main seasons in India.
Right. Rice is so important we sow it 3 times a year in different parts of the country.
And the main one is?
The main season is Aman, also called Kharif or winter rice. Sown in June, July with the monsoon, harvested in November, December. This is the big one. It covers 84% of the total rice area in India.
84%, so that's the main crop.
Absolutely. Then you have autumn rice, or autumn rice, sown in May, June, and harvested in September, October. That's about 7%. And the third is boro, or spring-summer rice, sown in November, December, harvested in March, April, covering the last 9%.
Got it. Now, before any planting, the land prep for transplanted rice involves this process called puddling. We need to go deep on this. What is it and why is it so critical for water?
Puddling is non-negotiable for lowland rice. It's basically the mechanical destruction of the soil aggregates. You're churning the soil with standing water until it becomes a liquid mud.
That sounds harsh. Why do it?
The main objective is to drastically reduce water loss through percolation. By destroying the soil structure, you create an impervious layer, a hard pan, just below the surface. It seals the soil and keeps that precious water from draining away.
So it's all about trapping the water. Are there any other benefits?
Yes, 2 big ones. First, it's great for weed control. It buries weed seeds deep in the mud. And second, the churning process actually increases nutrient availability for the young seedlings.
Okay, so once the field is a puddled mess, the planting method dictates the seed rate. And these rates vary wildly.
They really do, and it shows the efficiency gains of different methods. If you just broadcast the seed, scatter it by hand, you need a lot, 100 kilograms per hectare.
100 kilos, okay.
If you use a drilling method, planting in rows, it's better. That's down to 60 kilograms per hectare.
And for transplanting?
For conventional transplanting from a nursery, it's about 75 to 40 kilograms. If you're using a modern hybrid seed, it drops dramatically to just 15 kilograms per hectare.
And the most efficient method of all?
That's the system of rice intensification, or SRI. It needs a remarkably low amount of seed, only 5 to 8 kilograms per hectare.
From 100 down to 5, that's a huge savings. So for standard transplanting, what are the nursery rules?
The rule of thumb for the nursery area is it should be 1/10 of your main field area. So for 1 hectare, you need a 1,000 square meter nursery.
And the spacing in the field?
Typically 20 by 10 centimeters. The key is the stage of the seedling. You want to transplant at the 4-leaf stage.
Not 3, not 5.
3 is okay, but never 5. It's too old and suffers too much transplanting shock. The ideal age is 20-30 days old in the Kharif season and a bit older, 30-35 days in the Rabi season.
Let's talk about the specialized nursery methods, starting with Dapog. It's a method that doesn't even use soil.
That's right. The Dapog method comes from IRI in the Philippines. You raise a super dense mat of seedlings without any soil contact on wooden planks, trays, even concrete floors.
What's the advantage of that?
Speed and efficiency. The seedlings grow incredibly fast. They're ready for transplanting in just 12 days.
12 days.
And you need a tiny nursery area. Just 25 to 30 square meters is enough for 1 whole hectare. It's an amazing system.
And how does that compare to the traditional wet bed method?
The wet bed is the standard soil-based nursery. It needs a much larger area, that 1,000 square meters we mentioned, a higher seed rate of 40 to 50 kilograms, and the seedlings take longer, about 20-25 days.
Okay, let's get to the most radical method of all. The system of rice intensification, SRI. It's called the Madagascar method. What's the story there?
It was developed in Madagascar in the 1980s by a French Jesuit priest, Henri de Launany. It's not about a new seed. It's a completely different way of managing the plants, soil, water, and nutrients. It's an agroecological approach.
So it's a total rethink of the system. What are the core principles? It seems to go against everything we think we know about rice.
It does. Conventional farming is about density and flooding. SRI flips that. The basic principles are use way fewer plants, use way less water, and focus on improving the soil health.
So how is that done in practice?
Well, instead of close spacing, SRI uses wide spacing, like 25 by 25 centimeters. And instead of 30-day-old seedlings, you transplant very young seedlings, only 8 to 12 days old at the two-leaf stage.
Wait, you plant tiny seedlings really far apart. It seems like you'd get less yield, not more.
It's counterintuitive, I know. But the logic is that the young seedling suffers less shock, and the wide spacing gives it room to tiller to produce many more stems from a single plant. The potential for tillering is massive.
And the water, it's not flooded.
This is the other huge difference. The field is kept moist but never flooded. You use intermittent irrigation. This saves an enormous amount of water and actually promotes healthier, deeper roots.
The results are supposedly amazing. What are the numbers?
The benefits are real. We're talking 20 to 100% or even more increased yields, up to 90% less seed needed, up to 50% water savings. The average yield is 6 to 7 tons per hectare, when conventional is only 2 to 3.
I've even heard of record yields being much higher.
Yes, there was a report in 2014 of a farmer achieving nearly 24 tons per hectare with SRI.
So if it's that good, what's the catch? Why isn't everyone doing it?
The big demerit is labor. It's very labor-intensive, especially at first. Transplanting those tiny individual seedlings and doing more weeding because the field isn't flooded costs a lot in labor. It's more feasible for small farmers who can manage that.
That makes sense.
Okay.
Okay, what about the main alternative to transplanting altogether? Direct seeded rice or DSR?
DSR is just what it sounds like. You sow the seed directly in the field. No nursery, no transplanting.
The benefits seem obvious.
They are. You save a ton on labor, fuel, time, and water because you don't have to puddle the field. The yield can be similar to transplanted rice if you manage it well.
But there has to be a drawback.
A very serious one, weed management. Without puddling and flooding, the weeds just explode. It's a huge challenge.
And we also have aerobic rice.
Yes, that's a system using special varieties that can grow in well-drained, non-puddled soils. It's another water-saving approach, aiming for yields of 4 to 6 tons per hectare.
And lastly, what is para or Utera cropping?
That's a type of relay cropping. You broadcast the next crop, like lentils or linseed, into the standing rice field about 10 days before you harvest the rice. It's a clever way to use residual moisture and save time.
Now that we've covered the crucial physical steps of planting, from puddling to SRI, let's move into the essential inputs. But before we discuss how to feed the rice plant properly, if you are finding this explanation helpful, don't forget to subscribe to Foundation Agri classes for more agriculture-related informative content. And we're back. We're moving into Section 4, Nutrient Management and Soil Chemistry. This gets pretty technical. Let's start with the standard fertilizer recommendations.
For your high-yielding varieties, the standard NPK ratio is 120.60.60 kilograms per hectare.
Nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium.
Correct. For upland rice, it's usually half that, so 60.30.30. And a key micronutrient is zinc. You add about 25 kilograms of zinc sulfate per hectare during the final puddling.
Okay, now the soil in a flooded paddy is unique. You mentioned these two distinct zones that develop. Can you explain that?
I can. When you flood the soil, it creates two different chemical environments. There's a very thin layer on top, maybe 1 to 10 millimeters, that's in contact with the water. That's the oxidized zone. It has oxygen.
Okay, the top skin?
Exactly. And everything below that is the reduced zone. There's no oxygen there, so it becomes chemically reduced. This difference is absolutely critical for managing nitrogen.
How so? How does the plant take up nitrogen, and how do these zones affect our fertilizer choice?
This is the most important part of rice nutrition. The rice plant prefers to take up its nitrogen in the ammonical form, which is NH4 plus vote.
Monica.
So fertilizers like ammonium sulfate are much better than nitrate-based fertilizers, and where you place it is key. You must place these ammonical fertilizers deep into the reduced zone.
Why the reduced zone specifically?
Because the ammonical ion, NH4 plus Ove, is positively charged, it sticks to the negatively charged soil particles and doesn't leach away. It stays where the roots can get it.
So what's wrong with using nitrate fertilizers?
Nitrate, NO3, is negatively charged, so it doesn't stick to the soil and leaches easily. But the bigger problem is a process called denitrification.
Okay.
If nitrate fertilizer gets into that anaerobic reduced zone, microbes there will convert it into nitrogen gas, which just bubbles away into the atmosphere. You can lose up to 60% of your applied nitrogen that way. It's a massive waste.
So the overall efficiency must be quite low.
It is. Nitrogen use efficiency in rice is only about 30 to 40%. And as an environmental side note, this reduced condition is what leads to methane gas being emitted from rice fields.
Beyond chemical fertilizers, what about biological options?
Biofertilizers are very important. Things like blue-green algae can reduce your need for chemical nitrogen by 25 to 30%.
And the water fern, azolla.
Yes, the water fern azolla has a symbiotic relationship with a blue-green algae called Anabaena azole. They work together to fix nitrogen right there in the paddy water. For all this to work, you need the micronutrient molybdenum, Mo, which is essential for the nitrogenase enzyme.
Turning to irrigation timing, are there stages where water is absolutely critical?
Yes, two main ones. The first is the tillering stage early on when the plant is putting out new shoots.
And the most critical one?
The most critical stage is the booting stage. That's when you see the flag leaf sheath start to swell, meaning the panicle, the future grain head, is forming inside. Water stress at that point is catastrophic for your yield.
So what's the rule for water depth?
Generally, you want to maintain a depth of 5 centimeters of water from about a week after transplanting until 2 or 3 weeks before harvest. Keeping that 5-centimeter depth during the reproductive and grain-filling stages is the most beneficial strategy.
This brings us to problems. Let's talk about nutritional deficiencies and toxicities, starting with the famous Jaya disease.
Jaya disease is the classic zinc deficiency in rice. It shows up early, 2 to 3 weeks after transplanting.
What are the symptoms to look for?
The leaf tips turn yellow and then dry up, and the plant stays stunted. The key sign is rust-colored or brownish-red spots appearing on the outer leaves. It was first reported by Y.L. Neme back in 1966 at Pantnagar.
And the fix?
It's simple. You can spray 5 kilograms of zinc sulfate at the nursery or do a foliar spray of 0.5% zinc sulfate in the field.
What about the opposite problem, toxicity? We have browning of rice from iron.
Right. Iron toxicity is a big issue in waterlogged acidic soils. The reduced conditions make iron so soluble it becomes toxic. You'll see brown spots on the lower leaves starting from the tips. The Falguna variety is known to be tolerant to it.
And there's also Akioki disease from sulfite toxicity.
Yes, in really heavily reduced conditions, sulfate in the soil gets converted to toxic hydrogen sulfide gas, H2S. This causes the roots to turn black and rot so they can't absorb any nutrients.
Finally, our notes mention silicon. Why is it so important for rice?
Silicon is considered essential because it provides physical strength. The plant uses it to build a thick cuticle silica layer on its surfaces. This acts like a suit of armor, a physical barrier against insects and diseases. Basic slag is often applied to correct a silicon deficiency.
That paints a full picture of the soil and nutrient world. Let's move above ground to Section V, weed management. What are the major culprits?
Even in flooded fields, you have weeds. The big ones are grasses that look like rice, like Echinoclea criscali and E. colonna. And a growing problem in direct-seeded rice is weedy or red rice. But the weed problem is always worse in DSR compared to transplanted puddled rice.
What are some of the clever non-chemical ways to manage them, like brown manuring?
Brown manuring is a brilliant integrated technique. You grow rice and a green manure crop called daincha together for about a month.
How does that work?
You sow your rice in lines, then broadcast the sesbania or daincha seed. After about 30 days, you spray a herbicide, 2004D, which knocks down the broadleaf sesbania.
So you're killing your cover crop.
Yes, and that's the genius of it. The dead sesbania decomposes and acts as a manure, providing nitrogen. And the 2,4-D that killed it also kills all the other broadleaf weeds in the field. It's a 2-for-1 deal.
Very clever. What about the practice called bo-shing or B.Sc?
That's a cultural practice in direct-seeded lowland rice, common in Bihar and Orissa. It's basically cross-plowing the young rice crop, about 4 to 6 weeks old, in standing water.
You plow your own crop.
You do. It sounds destructive, but it controls weeds, thins out the crop stand to an optimal level, and aerates the soil.
And finally, the chemical options. What are the main herbicides?
For pre-emergence, before the weeds come up, you've got things like benthiocarbon, which is Saturn, and butaclar, which is machete, and alofos and nitrofen are also used.
And for post-emergence, after you see the weeds?
The most common one by far is propanil, or STAM F34. You apply that about a week after transplanting when the weeds are still small.
Okay, let's move to Section 6. Pest and disease management. Rice must be a target for a lot of pests.
An enormous list. We'll just hit the major ones. You have the yellow stem borer, which causes dead hearts and white ears.
Right.
You have the rice hisper, the rice gundi bug, which sucks the milk from the grains. And then you have the really critical ones, the hoppers.
The brown plant hopper and the green leaf hopper.
Exactly. The brown plant hopper, or BPH, is a vector for grassy stunt virus. And the greenleaf hopper is the vector for the devastating tongue row disease. So it's not just the bug, it's the disease it carries.
What are some of the other major diseases we need to know?
Well, the most famous fungal disease is blast, or rotten neck disease, caused by Pyrrhicularia oryzae. Then there's bacterial leaf blight, or BLB.
And the viruses you mentioned, tongue row and grassy stunt.
Correct. We also have brown leaf spot, sheath blight, and a whole host of others like Bacchanae disease, false smut, and even a nematode disease called Montech.
And we should remember the physiological ones we already covered.
Exactly. Chiara disease from zinc deficiency and browning from iron toxicity often get confused with infectious diseases, but they're purely nutritional.
All right, this brings us to Section 7. Varieties and genetic breakthroughs. This is really the history of modern rice. Where does the story start?
It all starts with that dwarfing gene we talked about. The first variety to carry it and change the world was TN1, developed in Taiwan in 1964. It was introduced to India shortly after.
And that was followed by the miracle rice.
Yes, IR8, released by IRRI in 1966. That was the first high-yielding, photoinsensitive dwarf variety that really took off. Those two, TN1 and IR8, powered the green revolution in rice.
At the same time, China was working on hybrids.
That's right. Wai Peng developed the first commercial hybrid rice in China in 1970 using a technique called cytoplasmic male sterility, or CMS. China still leads the world in hybrid rice today.
And India's story. Who is the father of hybrid rice here?
That would be E.A. Sadiq. Our first hybrid, CORHI, was released in 1994, but our own miracle rice was a variety, not a hybrid. It was Jaya, released in 1968.
And Jaya was a big deal.
A huge deal. It was our first high-yielding semi-dwarf, and it actually out-yielded both TN1 and IR8 under our conditions. It was developed by Dr. Shastri from a cross of TN1 and another variety, T141.
That's a great story.
Yeah.
What about varieties bred for specific problems, like salt or disease?
There are many. For direct seeding, you have varieties like Bala and Najina 22. For salt tolerance, IR8 and Lunashri. For waterlogged areas, Jalmagan. And for that iron toxicity problem, variety Falguna.
And famous Basmati aroma.
That comes from a specific chemical, diacetyl-1 propylene. IRI has done incredible work on breeding high-yielding basmati types like Pusa Basmati 1, which was the world's first high-yielding dwarf-quality rice.
Finally, we're in Section 8, harvesting and post-harvest. What are the key moisture levels we need to know?
This is critical for preventing loss. At harvest, the grain moisture should be between 20 and 25%.
Okay.
But for safe long-term storage, you have to dry it down to 10 to 12%.
And then it goes through processing, hulling, milling.
Right. Hulling is just removing the husk. That gives you brown rice. Milling or polishing is when you remove the bran layer and the embryo to get white rice.
And that's where we lose a lot of nutrients.
We do. Specifically, you lose a lot of vitamin B, especially thiamine. And a deficiency of thiamine is what causes the disease beriberi.
So how does parboiling help with that? I've heard of it, but what is it?
Parboiling is a hydrothermal process. You treat the unhulled patty with hot water and steam before you mill it.
And what does that do?
It's genius. The process forces the nutrients, especially the B vitamins, from the outer bran layer into the starchy endosperm, the part we eat. So when you later polish it, the nutrients have been saved. It dramatically improves the nutritive value.
That is clever. Let's recap the yield numbers one last time.
Conventional methods give you 2 to 3 tons per hectare. DSR and aerobic rice aim for 4 to 6 tons. But SRI, the system of rice intensification, averages 6 to 7 tons, with record yields going as high as 24 tons per hectare.
Any final key facts for us?
Just a few. India holds the maximum germplasm, the genetic library of rice in the world. The ideal plant type is described as having small, thick, erect leaves for better photosynthesis. And hybrid production relies on those A and R lines for the CMS system.
That brings us to the end. What a deep dive. Let's try and summarize. We started with the basics.
Right, Oryza sativa from Southeast Asia, the staple for over half the world. We mentioned the key institutes CRI and IRRI.
And then we hit that central tension of rice, the staggering 5,000 liters of water needed for every kilogram of grain.
We covered the classification into indica, japonica, and javanica, and the key adaptation of parenchyma tissue that lets it breathe underwater in that unique oxidized and reduced soil environment.
We detailed the cultivation methods, puddling to save water, the hyper-efficient Dapog nursery, and of course the revolutionary SRI method with its wide spacing in young seedlings.
And we clarified how critical it is to manage nitrogen, using the ammoniacal form deep in the reduced zone to prevent denitrification losses. We identified Cara disease from zinc deficiency and remembered the game-changing varieties like TN1, IR8, and of course, India's own Jaya.
It's an incredible amount of complexity and management for one single crop. Which leads me to a final thought for you to consider. We know the most efficient methods, like SRI, have high labor costs, and that 5,000-liter water requirement isn't going away. So the question is, can agricultural science develop a completely automated, low-water rice cultivation system before climate change and population growth make our current methods simply unsustainable?
That is the ultimate challenge facing this ancient, vital crop.
Thank you for listening. Keep learning, keep growing, and don't forget to subscribe to Foundation Agri classes for more agriculture-related videos and learning resources.